started last week, and this presentation was shared at the visioning team meeting, as we know that it's a huge priority for our school board to do. Also, this data wall would not be here if it weren't for you, Diane Campbell. So thank you so much for, in your first couple of months on the job, getting this up and off the ground. So thank you so much. Without anything else, without further ado, Ben, let's turn it over to you to get
Sure,
this
thank you. And I'm here really for support to the preschools in terms of putting together a visioning team or the work that the superintendent has referenced. All the credit goes to Stacy, to Tiffany, and to their teams. We are learning from them, and alongside of them, we're excited to do that. So I want to introduce the team, and they're gonna go through the presentation, and Diane and I will be here just as needed. So with that.
I'm Stacy Struck. I'm the Early Childhood Specialist for Davenport Community Schools preschool programs.
I'm Tiffany Stalkup, the principal at Children's Villages. You need to introduce yourself, Diane.
Diane Campbell, Director of Learning and Results.
Okay, so in our presentation today, we're just going to talk a little bit about preschool in Davenport, why preschool is important, what kind of programming we have. Thank you. And just a little bit of background on our program. Oh, you got to scroll. Okay. So first, why preschool? Why is preschool important? Why is it a focus for us in our work every day? And why should it be for the district? So first, just want to point out the neurological impact for students. So as you can see in this graphic, 90% of brain development happens before the age of 5. So by the time we hit kindergarten, it's too late to build some of those neural pathways that are best for learning. Our brains grow and build through touch, talk, sight in an early childhood classroom. That's really what we focus our experiences on at the villages. Children who receive that high-quality early education demonstrate a greater cognitive and social emotional growth than students that do not. So just some kind of food for thought, more than 1 million new neural connections are formed every second in the first few years of life. So again, it's just super important for that early childhood years. The brain is most flexible and adaptable to learning during the earliest years of life. And our children who face greater adversity are at higher risk for delays in their cognitive, language, and emotional development. Which kind of leads us to why it's so important. So high-quality preschool programs have been proven to be the earliest form of dropout prevention, decrease the likelihood to be evaluated for special education in elementary schools and beyond, lower the likelihood of being arrested for a violent crime in their adult years, and then increase the likelihood of attending college or heading to a career path after high school. And then not only is it impact on early childhood happen to the child, but on as a system as a whole. In a lot of studies, it has shown that every dollar put into early childhood is returned to the district by 4 to 9 times from those intervention and remedial services that we don't have to provide later on in their school experience. So now a little bit about our DCSD preschool sites. Our largest site is Children's Village West. It is located near the Putnam Museum. Currently, we have about 280 3- and 4-year-olds that come to our building every day. We have 9 full-day sections and 8 half-day sections, so 4 teachers that teach both an AM and a PM class. 3 special education-only classrooms there in that building. We have 18 teachers and 41 paraeducators in the building. Through our programming, which we'll talk about, we need to have highly qualified staff. So not only do our teachers obviously have teaching licenses, but 6 of them have master's degrees and 12 of them a bachelor's in inclusive early childhood settings. And our paras, all but 10 of them, because they're new hires, either have a bachelor's, an associate's, or a CDA child development credential. So we have a very qualified staff. And then probably something that's near and dear to my heart is our CTE program for early childhood education for all of our high schools is located at Children's Village West. I did this program when I was in high school, so it's kind of near and dear to my heart. I did it at West High School, but currently this semester we have 39 kiddos that come in the morning and the afternoon. They do a coursework with their high school teacher on child development, on best practices in the classroom, and then they get to go in the classrooms and they all have assignments. So they're all working with kids, with our teachers every day. So they really get a good taste if education is a field they want to be in or not. Since this is my third year, I think we've hired 10 of our early childhood kiddos once they graduate since I've been there, and I know you've experienced a lot more in the years that you've been there. Children's Village Hoover is our next site that is only preschoolers. So currently we have about 125 kiddos down there. We have 6 full-day sections, 2 half-days, which again is that one teacher that teaches an AM and a PM, and then 1 special education only classroom. We have 8 teachers down there, 18 paraeducators, and I'm really proud of this staff, something that I have to highlight about them. So out of the 8 teachers, they have 124 years of experience at the villages alone. So some of them came to us from other places, but they've come and they stay there a really long time. So we are thankful for them. We have 2 elementary sites this year, half days at Buffalo and Hayes Elementary. So our teacher and 2 paraeducators move from Buffalo in the morning to Hayes in the afternoon. And then we also have our partner site locations. So listed on the left side of this slide are all of our partners throughout the community. So to become a partner site, they have to come meet with Stacy and I, and they have to meet the Iowa Quality Preschool standards. So they have to be up to par with our 4-year-old standards. We do site visits. They have to turn in some artifacts for the desk audit to make sure that they are meeting those criteria. Probably the hardest thing for a lot of our sites is to keep that certified teacher at their site, and also the high quality support staff. We do flow through funding for all their 4-year-olds that are enrolled at the program, as well as our special education students. Those sites are also required to have a monthly meeting with Stacy and I, just to discuss their curriculum, their scheduling, things like that, to make sure that they're up to par with those standards. So our curriculum and instruction. Our children's villages, we have a full day and half day. They all meet Monday through Friday, so 5 days a week. Our full days are 8 to 2 o'clock. Our half days are 2 hours and 45 minutes. The times kind of depend on the building that they're in. Our partner sites don't necessarily follow that same schedule. They just have to do 10 hours of preschool according to the statewide program. So at our sites, it's either the full day or the half day. They all include whole group and small group instruction, outdoor play, meals. No matter what session you come to, they get a meal. They have interest area play or center time where they get to play and really work with the materials in the classroom. And then our full day kiddos do get 45 minutes of rest time, so they don't have to sleep, but they're on their cot, reading books, doing puzzles, things like that. For our instruction, we're really focused on play. So we are intentionally putting materials and teaching kiddos how to use things that are in our classroom and why they're there, whether they're exploring or if they're doing matching or math activities, literacy, really working with our teachers to make sure that all the toys and materials in their classroom are purposeful and have a goal in mind to teach the kids. Our curriculum resources, currently we do have 6 teachers piloting the creative curriculum, which I know you guys heard a little bit about from Jen Saxon, and they're loving it. So it's a curriculum that really combines all of those content areas into one streamlined platform that aligns with our standards. So we're excited about that. The rest of our classes are currently using World of Wonders, HMH Math Expressions, Second Step for that social emotional piece. We are using some 95% more with our older 4-year-olds, not so much our 3s before they go to kindergarten, Haggerty, and then Handwriting Without Tears for those fine motor writing skills. And then for our social emotional, we do use early childhood PBIS to align with that K-12, as well as conscious discipline, really teaching adults how to interact with kids, specifically when having some negative behaviors. So our goal with all of those is to create a path that's going to be successful for all of our preschoolers when they hit kindergarten. It's kind of a scroll.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, I'll take over from here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about inclusion in our preschool settings. We do have a large population of special education students, and we've always focused on integration, but this year one of our main goals is really to move to a fully inclusive setting, so I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. We have engaged with the support of AEA to go through 3 years of training in specially designed instruction and how to embed practices that meet all of the best practices nationwide to include that. But we're starting with our dual endorsed program model, and we followed this years ago. In the 1990s in Iowa, the Board of Educational Examiners created an endorsement for teachers from birth to third grade that had a dual endorsement where they would be certified for both special education and early childhood. So it's a unique endorsement that allows teachers to provide that instruction right in their classroom. It's been rewritten as Inclusive Settings 1001 now. But all of our teachers have always been certified in that, but in the past we had special education teachers that would go into the classroom and work with those students or pull students out. So this year, the teachers have the opportunity to write and monitor their IEPs. They're planning and delivering all the instruction throughout the day. So in our previous model, skills were taught in isolation based on those goal areas and didn't have as much bang for your buck, so to speak, whereas now all of the instruction can be embedded within meals, within center play, within large motor. We're meeting monthly with our teachers and paras to coach them on these strategies as well. And we're a month in now, and we've already seen a tremendous impact on the students, phenomenal buy-in from the teachers, and just really are seeing the results of that as well. And of course, we want all of our students to have those peer models so that they are exposed to students that have skills that we would see in typically developing students as well. So again, just a little graphic to talk a little bit more about that. When we're looking at inclusion, all students are in that classroom. They're all working on similar goals to meet the Iowa Early Learning Standards, but the way that instruction or content is adapted is what's specially designed for them. Older models, of course, were the exclusion model, where they just couldn't attend school at all. Or in segregation, you would have all of your general education students in one classroom and all of your special education students in another. But what we saw in the previous models with integration is that while we had both special education and general education students in the classroom, those special education students were more apt to be working on a separate set of skills or not as included in that every part of that daily instruction. So we're really excited about having this opportunity to move to this model this year. So that leads a lot into our funding discussion too. So I'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. So this is a graphic that Tiffany created to help just give you a visual. No, it's excellent. A visual of what it looks like, because obviously you're aware of funding in K-12 buildings, and there's just a simple per pupil expense as well as title and things like that. But in preschool, it's quite different. So in all of our classrooms, we have 6 slots, classroom seats available for special education students, and due to that, the special ed department pays for 1/3 of our teachers, as well as our paras too. Then we also have 3 Head Start spots left and allocated for our contract with Head Start, and then they enroll all of the students for that. They do the paperwork, but then they're in our classrooms, which leaves us approximately 11 spots for those statewide voluntary children. So all of those different funding streams braiding together is what creates us to be able to run, the program as well. So we do receive a lump sum of title funding, like I stated, but then we also have to braid that with some other funding sources to be able to make that work. So just for the statewide voluntary funds, what we receive each year, the year after the students have been enrolled, is a 0.5 of that per pupil funding by the state. So this year it's $3,811.91. Tiffany shared the slide with all of our partner sites. So with all of their sites, in addition to our sites, we're allowed to keep 5% of that over top to cover our administrative costs in the program. And each of them are allowed to use 10% of their allocation for administrative costs as well. Otherwise, all of those funds go directly to the classroom materials, curriculum, instruction, and those students. For our partner sites, we give them a 50% of their allocation in September, and then they send us quarterly reports based on the money that they've spent in those quarters. We give an individual amount to each site based on that allocation and their needs. However, again, that wouldn't be enough to fully run our program. So we do have a partnership with Head Start, and we assigned 68 of our slots out of our 440 slots just to be Head Start, and that brings us in a little over $250,000 per year. We also use child care assistance, and that's through the Department of Health and Human Services. That allows families to subsidize their tuition. They may have a copayment, but it pays for the majority of that. We currently have 45 students that are using child care assistance, and we could recoup, based on that number, up to $300,000 per year. And then again, depending on if they're full day or half day or braiding funds with other, it could be more or less than that number too. So it's quite a large amount of our funding sources. We also have a partnership with Early Childhood Iowa, where we're allowed to use scholarships with them. They allot $5,000 to each of our centers, so Children's Village Hoover and Children's Village West, each month. So that's a total allocation of $90,000 per year that we receive from them. And currently with those scholarships, we're funding 24 families right now. And those are the ones that are first come, first serve. So those are already usually allocated before school even starts at the beginning of the school year. And then, of course, we do accept parent payment. So for a half-day child for the statewide voluntary program, that is all covered by the cost of that statewide voluntary grant. If 4-year-old students choose to go for a full day, they can braid those funds with Head Start, child care assistance, or they can pay tuition of $90 per week for that extended day. For our 3-year-olds, if they're coming to one of our half-day programs, that is also a fee of $90 per week, and if they choose to enroll in a full-day program, that's a charge of $180 per week. So all of those together are getting really close to balancing our budget. We're very excited. But due to some of those funding sources, actually due to all of those funding sources, we do have to follow several sets of standards. And so you might be used to hearing about standards in terms of the Iowa Core. In preschool, we do have the Iowa Early Learning Standards that cover birth to those preschool years until they turn 5. But these standards are a different set of standards that we're required to follow to be accredited and to be licensed. So I want to talk a little bit about those a little bit more in details. So again, the Health and Human Services Department through Iowa, or Department of Human Services, they've combined now, so it's Health and Human Services. We don't have to choose to be licensed by them, but we do choose to do that because if we weren't, then we wouldn't be able to help those families with that child care assistance. And like I said, right now it's 45 families. So it's a whole other set of standards that we do have to make sure we have in place, and they come through annually and do walkthroughs to make sure we're meeting all of those standards. But it's really important for us to be able to have families to have access to those funds. Another add-on to being licensed by DHS is what's called Iowa Quality for Kids. And that is based on different things that we can prove we've met through an application process that happens every 2 years. We can qualify for a rating of 1 star to 5 stars. And so currently we're a 4-star program at both of our sites. So we're up for renewal this year, assuming we maintain a minimum of a 3. Not only does that allow us to recoup more funding from child care assistance, but it'll also give us a stipend of about $19,000 that we can use on any additional things that we need. So it's a nice little bonus for us to be able to participate in that quality rating scale. The Iowa Quality Preschool Program Standards are the set of standards that every preschool program that's accredited in Iowa and receives money through that statewide voluntary grant must meet at a minimum. And there's 10 different standards in there that cover things like, what does our daily schedule look like? How do we balance activities? What are our methods of assessment? How do we make sure we have highly qualified teachers and paraeducators? Do they have the correct licensing? Do they have the correct credentials? It looks at our outdoor and indoor space. Do we have fenced-in playgrounds? Do we have 35 usable square feet in each classroom per student? So it's a variety of different things. And then again, Tiffany mentioned briefly the desk audit. And so the desk audit is something through the Department of Ed where we have to submit evidence that we have met all of those standards annually, and they give us feedback on that. So we're in good shape for that. That'll be due in December of this year, and we've got almost everything we need ready to submit to that. The highest level of preschool standards nationwide is Head Start program performance standards, and because we do partner with Community Action of Eastern Iowa and have those 68 slots, we do have to follow Head Start program performance standards as well. They encompass all of those Iowa quality learning standards, but just have a higher level of rigor that we have to meet too. And that's for all of our full day programs in the classroom. I'm going to turn it back over to Tiff.
And that brings us to the future of preschool in the Davenport schools. As they were talking about before we started this presentation, a visioning team combined from leaders from the villages, from our district, as well as the AEA, with the help of Diane and Ben, have all come together and really going to look at what should our preschools look like? How can we make, we've been kind of a preschool island, so how can we make a pre-K-12 system that really works for our kids? And we owe that to the kids of Davenport. So we're really working on what that looks like, and we will continue to work on that.
So with that, we would open it up to any questions or comments or feedback anyone might have.
Director Hayes.
You had mentioned the Iowa Q4K program and being affiliated with the states. Do you get any of the funds that come with that program for being certified?
Yeah, absolutely. So the process used to be called the quality rating system, and it's been updated in the last couple of years to be the Iowa Quality 4K. So they have different strands, and so if you're an IQPS strand, then you have a number of items that are grayed out that you don't have to do because you've already shown that you've met those accreditation standards. If you are a private provider and you don't meet that, then you'd have a whole other set of skills. Because we do follow the Head Start performance standards, we get to follow that track, which allows us to reduce a variety of trainings that are required for our staff because we've already shown evidence that we meet those standards. So yes, it's definitely beneficial to meet those programming standards to participate in that. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Director Beck.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. So I know you said full day preschool, at least for our own sites, is 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. What do we offer for those parents who have a full-time job?
That is always a struggle for us. We do offer what we call an AM wrap. It starts at 7 a.m. So we have about 20 kids that come at 7. And then we also have stepping stones at both of our sites that would offer until 5:30.
Okay, so they do have wraparound care then?
Yes.
Okay. And then my other question, basically, we would love for all of our kids to go to preschool, right? So what would it take for us to be able to do that so that we have 90% of kids attend? I mean, nothing's ever 100%, but that's the goal to shoot for, right? Yeah. Who attend preschool of some form before they start kindergarten with us.
Yeah, I think that's the work of our visioning team and where we're heading to see how we can get preschools in neighborhoods that don't have it currently, and looking at some of that data and analyzing what areas we can target, and looking at prior data to see where we've been and did it work. So definitely an area that the visioning team is going to be looking at.
And just to give a little more context around that visioning team that we're referencing, it starts with 4 of us that are at this table. We have people from learning and results teams. We have people from special education, HR, operations, finance, AEA, from the villages, our elementary school principals. We recognize that there is a variety of perspectives that will go into a lift this large. So we brought everybody together for this presentation. So we're all starting kind of with that same kind of foundational learning. And then we recognize that it is going to be a long process okay, well, where would this go? How much would that cost? How much are those things? So we'll bring in smaller groups throughout for that very work.
Okay. One final follow-up question. So of our kids who've attended preschool, do we track how many went to like just a private daycare center with preschool or, a church preschool that wasn't one of our partner sites versus a Davenport Community School District preschool, either ours or a partner site?
Yep, so that is something that we've been working with Rebecca Drummond in our Infinite Campus registration system, because before it was just parent report. Did your kid attend preschool, yes or no? And so now we do have separate, everybody has to complete online registration for our sites, and then our partner sites, one of our secretaries put them in. So we do have a track, I guess, for them if they are part of our quality programming.
Okay, so, but like, we only have parent reporting for kids who've attended a preschool that wasn't a Davenport
Correct.
preschool. Okay.
Director Potts.
What's the average class size?
So we can have up to 20. So Iowa Quality Preschool Programming Standard says 20 is the max. Our average size right now is probably between 15 to 18.
Okay. Second question. Do the funds generated, the total funds generated, is that sufficient to cover the cost of our preschool program?
Not currently.
And what is the gap?
We are utilizing ESSER funds currently, and I want to say we looking at like 350,000 this year.
Okay, so it's not millions. It's.
I think we'll be able to close that gap.
Okay. Third question. When you were talking about inclusion versus integration, IEPs generally they have specific targeted goals for students. I don't know if preschool IEPs are different and are more generic in their goals, but how do you handle or balance a specific goal when it's not in what is the current instruction?
So definitely they still have targeted goals. It's the same IEP system as it is for K-12. So that's part of our specially designed instruction, professional development that we're going through is how to write meaningful goals. And number one, obviously the gap is less for children in preschool than if it was a student in 6th grade, potentially, right? They can't be as discrepant potentially, but we really want to work on those functional goals. So how are you navigating your environment? How are you transitioning? How are you increasing your vocabulary and the number of words you're stringing together in sentences? And of course, the goals are always individualized, so we could have any type of goal, but we try to make them really meaningful to make that student's world bigger, make them able to communicate and interact with their peers better. And so most of that lends instruction really well to, how am I going to move from the dramatic play center to math center? I've got to learn how to transition. I've got to learn how to problem solve. I've got to learn how to, tap Ben on the shoulder if I want to get his attention to be able to play with him. Some of our students are using tablets or pictures as their form of communication. And so even if it's during meals, do you want more chicken nuggets? And they might have a communication binder and they would have a core vocabulary picture of the word more chicken nuggets, and they would press more nuggets, if they don't have that. So we really use a lot of visuals to support that instruction, but also just, with that adult ratio, like Tiff said, we could have up to 20 students, but we have 3 adults in all of our classrooms. So really making that intentional and meaningful and planned. So it's not that they don't get to plan that instruction for that specially designed instruction. It has to be embedded into their lesson plans. It's just that rather than doing it for 10 minutes while I pull you to a side of the table, it's like, how do I make sure that in morning meeting, I'm giving you more opportunities to respond? How do I make sure that when we go out to recess, I'm having at least 5 conversational exchanges with you and things like that? Does that kind of answer that?
Now, what everybody can think, what I'm hearing you say is that there's a pretty broad spectrum of IEP needs and disabilities that you deal with there, from what apparently is almost non-communicative to higher functioning IEP kids. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I would say for some of those more academic skills, it is with our training. Teachers are learning how to make that scaffold. So we're learning about errorless teaching. So if they're learning about letters and other kids are matching capital to lowercase, maybe they're just matching the capital M to the capital M.
I
we
just
keep
I just
working
think
on
it's important for everybody to understand that there's a wide spectrum
Mhm.
of students
For sure.
in our preschool program.
that. Yes.
They're not all on the cusp of reading great literature.
Whoops. Director Hayes.
Thanks. You had mentioned 75% of brain development in 2-year-olds. Is there any vision or thought of ever getting 2-year-olds back in? Don't everybody answer at once.
I mean, it is the work of the visioning team. I tell you, I talked about being licensed by the Health and Human Services Department, and Heidi Brown is our consultant that comes out. And every year when she comes out, she's like, when are you going to get the babies back? When are you going to, because there's a huge need in the community for that, right? But to be able to, number one, we would need more space. Number two, the ratio for infants is 1 to 4, so it's very costly to be able to provide that too. So we would need to really look at the income of that. It's definitely something that we've thought about and would love to be able to do, but it's there's a lot of financial responsibility and so on to make that happen, and space. Yeah.
Director Barnes.
First, thanks for great presentation, very informative. I think I heard you say that the average class size is 17 to 18, which would suggest that we're not fully optimized. And I'm just curious if you could pinpoint, and maybe this is anecdotal, what the gap is, whether it's resistance to preschool enrollment, whether it's lack of awareness of opportunity, is it access related to geographic offerings, or is it cost? I mean, what is the barrier to fully optimized preschool enrollment? Is there maybe even a guess of those four things?
No, so currently we are full of our general education spots. And so our spots that are currently open are those that we are saving for special education. So as kind of through our AEA, we always have kids that are going through child find, birth to 3, and then those 3 and 4-year-olds. So if they are found eligible to be on an IEP and receive those services, we have to take them. So we do set aside those 6 spots, as Stacy showed in that graphic, for those kiddos with special education needs and that qualify for an IEP. So currently those are our only spots available, and we hold eligibility meetings 2 times a month for those. So we fully anticipate being full sooner than we'd like to be offering those services to kids.
Thank you. That's a very helpful clarification when we're thinking about the optimization. So
I would add one thing too, just for part of the visionary team. I think one of the barriers that we have to enrollment is language barriers too. So we are fortunate to have both at Hoover. We've got 2 bilingual people that speak Spanish at Hoover, and we have 3 now at West. And they do, it's not part of their job, but they do a lot of, if a family comes in wanting to register, they do all the translations, they help the teachers with home visits and so on. But I do think that when we don't have that connection, and we don't have many other languages, although we do have a couple that our adults speak, I think it's hard for them to just understand how to enroll in preschool, in the community.
Director Poston.
For me, getting preschool in the elementaries can't happen fast enough. And I know you're working hard to look into that with your visioning team. So what do you think, your biggest hurdles are going to be? We're looking at space, and hopefully we'll free up some space when 6th graders are back in intermediate school. And again, cost is going to be a big hang up. Is it going to be tough to come up with enough teachers and paras to fill those spots? And then can you give us any kind of indication? I mean, will there be a possibility of 2 or 3 more elementaries next year having preschool? I mean, is that kind of a goal that we could be looking at?
Yeah, that's definitely a focus of our visioning team, is how do we get it into more neighborhoods so that it's easily accessible for more families. I do think staffing is going to be an issue, as well as just getting it out there that they're going to have a preschool next year. So the sooner we can make those decisions, the better, so that we can start advertising those programs. But yeah, I think advertising and staff are going to be our biggest obstacles once we find the space.
Well, and you mentioned cost, finances, and Director Potts asked that question. And he asked, how close are we to covering? Well, the bigger that percentage that we run short, the larger our program is, the larger that shortfall will be. So the finances is going to have to, it's going to be a major factor.
Just add a little bit to that finance piece too, because that is where we've kind of had problems with the budget in the past. In order to fully fund the program, we would need to have, you talked about access to full day care, which most people want, and wraparound, but the way to fund those 4-year-olds is by having 2 fully enrolled classrooms of up to 40 students. If we don't have that enrollment, then we wouldn't be able to fund the staff in that room. So it would be really difficult to, like Ben said, just to budget for that as well. But definitely, there's, areas in the community that don't have preschool, so we definitely would like to get back in the elementaries as well.
Kevin, are there any funding sources? I assume we've exhausted all those, but are there any other funding sources that we could be looking at?
We have, I think I was counting the other day when our meeting, I think we had 7 different funding sources. We've pretty much exhausted that. We've been changing the formula like with Head Start. I think the concern is more the wraparound service. It's not so much the preschool for the half day the kids are in. It's the other half of the day where there are not funding sources. It'd be great if we could do it all day and the state would give us the full FTE of a student as opposed to half.
Director Kleindro.
As you're discussing this, is the thought that like the half-day programs would be in buildings and the full days would stay at Hoover and West? Or I can't see how we would have a full day in one or more elementary buildings.
Yeah, I think that's how we are currently. I know it has been, when I worked at Fillmore, they did have a full day program, but it was funded by a different funding source. So I think that just, all depends on the funding sources we find, and the opportunities for, what the families need, and hopefully we can make it work. But that's definitely
And then my second question is, how many students are the partner agencies have in their programs total? Do you know?
So yeah, they are anywhere from, like, our partner out in Walcott only has 12 kids, or last year they did, and all the way up to 45 was our highest.
You mean a total?
It's a total.
Or total.
About 406.
Yeah.
So it's almost what we are doing. Interesting, because we have 439.
Sorry. 406 total students at the partner sites. There's 13 of them.
Director Beck.
Getting back to those funding sources, because I think we're all in agreement that this is an important ask. Just trying to think out of the box. Is it the kind of, is the wraparound care something that we could find private sponsors for? Are there models, public-private models that we could use to fund some of that extra, or something like that? I'm not saying we necessarily, we don't need like a Hy-Vee preschool or something, but, there are lots and lots of corporations out there, and this seems to be something that is universally accepted as an important part of a community. So maybe there are people willing to step up to help at least provide some endowment funds for something like that. I don't know, especially if we've exhausted all of our other resources.
Student board members, I know this is your first meeting. Do any of you have any questions for the presentation?
Hello? Hello? Do you guys plan on having any field trips at all? Like the Figgy or anything?
So currently we do not have field trips just because of transportation. Most of our kids still go in car seats, so the transportation is an issue for us.
Do you guys ever plan on like bringing the field trip to them? Like a
Speak a little louder in your microphone.
Do you guys ever plan on bringing like reptiles to school to show them like different aspects of nature and stuff?
We haven't done that. The fire truck comes once a month. Well, they're coming soon, once a year for Fire Safety Month. And then we've had what else? Farm nights. We've had a lot of farm animals and stuff come in, but we've never had reptiles. But that's a good idea.
Oh,
They would love it.
I thought it was something new. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the presentation. I had a couple questions on the funding. So I notice a lot, like some of the partner sites say they offer a full free pre-K, but for us, we have different funding and also the parents have to pay. So how do the partner sites not get away, but how are they able to offer free pre-K, whereas we're not, but the money comes from us?
I don't think that any of our partners offer every day, full day for free. They all have wraparound. Some of the ones that do offer full day only go for, I know a couple of them only go 2 full days, so that would count as their 10 hours, but they're not 5 days a week.
Okay. And then the other question I had, I think somewhere in your presentation, we're able to keep 5% of whatever from the partner sites for the overhead administrative costs. Does that even cover it with the amount of stuff you have to do? And
No.
what would be a reasonable percentage that?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I wouldn't want to guess, but no, it does not cover it.
And is that like something that is a law, a legislation?
Yeah,
They
the state
set that?
dictates. Yeah, the state dictates that we can have 5% of that overhead.
So is it like in legislation or is it Department of Ed?
It's legislation.
Okay. Okay. I thought that was really low with the amount of stuff so they pretty much, we do it all and then we just funnel the money to them. Okay. I thought that. It's a weird concept for me that public school pays for private school. It feels like we wash the money. I don't think anyone could explain it any different to me, but it sucks for us because then the kids are in there right away from pre-K and they're able to steal those kids from our school district before they even set foot in our buildings. So that's probably all I'll say on that so I don't get myself in trouble. Any other questions? Thank you all very much for the presentation. Very in-depth presentation. Thank you. You getting ready to say something? Okay, you grab your microphone.
You don't have to get ready if you stay ready.
That's right.
Catholic schools, preschools, no kid in there. A lot of them don't have a school attendance.
All right, we will move on to student board reports. We'll just start at this end. Just say your name, what school you go to, a little about yourself, and then some things that you have going on in your, kind of like we did in the onboarding thing. If you don't have any reports tonight, that's fine. Just say your name and everything. So.
Hi, everybody. My name is Niwin. I'm in 12th grade as a senior in Central High School, and I'm super excited in doing MVP. It's a mentoring class that teaches 9th graders about different types of abuses and how to recognize them and how to go forward with it. I did it ever since I was in 10th grade, and like I have so much passion for it because I love teaching like the younger generation how to build forwards. And my friends like to make fun of me saying like I don't care about 12th graders, like about us. And they're right. I don't, but I care more about the younger generation. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jack Stremlow. I'm also a 12th grader at Central, and I'm really involved in the music programs at Central, and that's kind of what I'm looking to study in college as well.
I'm Ethan Cepeda. I'm a senior at North High School. I really like to get involved with the Cultural Diversity Club there because I think it's really good and it really does make an impact on the hallways. It decorates them nicely.
Hello, my name is Elena Pumivong. I am one of the senior student representatives of Davenport North, alongside Ethan Cepeda. I am an avid community volunteer who has over 250 community hours, and I'm also a dual enrollment student pursuing my Associates of Science and Associates of Liberal Arts, and I'm excited to be here on this board.
Hi. Hi, I'm LA Mangles. I'm a senior at Mid-City High School. Sadly, my other representative isn't here today. I'm involved in MVP as well, so we're going to be getting started on doing that. And then Mid-City is also having a Spirit Week next week.
Hi, my name is McKenna Burt, and I am from West High School. I'm involved with many things, but very excited to be involved with this. We just had our homecoming week, not this past week, but the week before that, and it went really well. And our school spirit was shared amongst many. The drumline joined many of the fall sports, and they went and paraded the feeder schools to promote school spirit and homecoming week. And then that Friday night, our football team won against Central, and so we took back the city title for the second year in a row. Thank you.
Hello, my name is V or Julie Wynn. That's crazy that we're all seniors. Oh wow, okay. So this upcoming week we actually had our first, was it a cardio room? Yeah. So although construction at West may cause dismay among students, first physical proof of progress towards the money invested in West has shown in our new cardio room in the physical education curriculum, and not only has excitement and new progress made towards our physical education curriculum, but along with our music departments, we have also worked towards our fall events, similar to all-state auditions, our showcases, our marching band halftime football shows to show off our amazing football team. So yeah, we're really excited for this year. Thank you for your time.
See, it was easy peasy, just like I said. Nothing to be nervous about. Also, as I told you before, if you need to get up because you have homework or you have something else going, just feel free to get up and leave. Don't feel like you have to hang around on our account. You can always study up on YouTube later on. So, oh, Superintendent Schneckloff.
I would also add that President and Vice President, myself, and Brenda T, we had our orientation, and this group of high school students is outstanding, and I'm very excited to see how this year unfolds as well. We're very lucky to have each and every single one of you be a part of our meetings. Sometimes they get long, and sometimes they can kind of draw out. And we're very excited that you're here. And again, just stick with us as long as you can. We totally understand if you get up, you're not gonna disrupt us. We're just gonna keep rolling. But I was really, really impressed at our orientation. The world is going to be okay.
All right, we'll move on to board reports. Are there any board reports? Director Poston.
since our last meeting, I was able to make some school visits. I visited Walcott, Bluegrass, Smart, and Sudlow. And I would like to thank all the staff for allowing me to step into some of their classrooms and visit those buildings.
Director Hayes.
I was able to participate in the North Homecoming festivities and the parade, the bonfire, and the game on Friday, and happy that both teams won.
Any other board reports? I was at the North Homecoming Parade and game, but I had to leave before the fourth quarter because it was way too late. It was a great game, great game. Also, I was but the superintendent already talked about that, our orientation with the student board members. We do greatly appreciate that. Myself and the superintendent, trying to remember which mayors we met with, and we're meeting with the mayor of Walcott this week. So we're doing our bi-monthly meetings with all the mayors to get that moving along. If there's no other board reports, I'll move on to open forum. And we have one. Brenda, you said there were no virtual open forums. Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Is it okay if I say a student board report for Davenport North right now? Yes. Okay. Okay. So I would just like to highlight, we have highlighted here that about the student hunger drive and student council. Right now, there is an ongoing penny wars that is being hosted. There was also a lollipop draw at the homecoming game.
As for our homecoming game, we did win Friday, both of our teams against Central. Our Spirit Week and actual homecoming ended last weekend. A lot of our students were involved in it. We had a tie in involvement for our barbecue dad and soccer mom day with our school colors, blue and gold. I personally enjoyed another one, which was USA Day. We also do have another lollipop draw going on at the game. We raised a lot of money from that. And then we also added to our traditional bonfire for homecoming. We had local diners come in the area, and we also provided energy drinks. And that's all.
I apologize. If you all have student board reports, feel free to give them right. No one West at Central have anything? Okay. Thank you. All right, now I'll move on to open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak, please fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The form is available in hard copy for in-person attendees or on the school board page of the district's website for those who want to participate virtually. Virtual participants must email their request to Brenda T. at tbrin@davenportschools.org by 3 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. Iowa open meeting law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president may set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. You will be asked to state your name and home address prior to making remarks. We have one tonight, Andrea Winters, and we'll go 3 minutes. Make sure you push that button and the green light comes on.
All right. My name is Andrea Winters. I reside at 3431 Middle Road, and I'm speaking as an individual. So as we're considering the proposal of building a new building for Sudlow Middle School, I am speaking on behalf of that. So I currently have 4 children. One has graduated from Central in 2020. I have 2 that are currently at Central, and then 1 that is at Sudlow/CAA. And although my children would not benefit from this project at Sudlow directly, other potential families will, which is why I'm up here advocating for and I'm supporting a new building for Sudlow. I served as a staff member in the long-term facilities management team that helped propose solutions for the future of our district. Currently, I am a certified teaching staff member at Sudlow Middle School and teach 8th grade science. I have class sizes as large as 32 and currently am teaching 8 out of the 9 periods a day, with 1 being an overage class due to ongoing teacher shortages. As a science teacher, I am fortunate to have one of the larger classrooms in the building, but others in my building are not as lucky and have to teach 36 students with way less space. Legacy work. Those were the words Mr. Schneckloth used and is the basis of restructuring our district, which included the recent closing of 3 buildings at the end of the school year last year. It was also the basis for the renewed commitment of the Davenport Community School District to reinvest in the future of our district through our buildings. We are currently seeing projects come from the first phase of this reinvigoration process, and it's exciting to see. There are several reasons to consider a new building for Sudlow and subsequently SMART. Consider the impact on the community of Davenport. Having updated or new buildings are attractive to potential homeowners and new residents to our community. It also has the potential to improve the overall housing market by increasing housing values in those neighborhoods that are seeing new building improvements. As we are aware, Davenport city leaders are working on attracting new businesses which have the potential to hire and attract people to our community, such as Amazon. Our commitment to updating or renovating our buildings demonstrates that we are also investing in our students and their education by providing up-to-date buildings that meet the students' unique needs, which attracts those potential employees to Davenport and ultimately the DCSD. I love an old building just like anyone else. However, old school buildings are inefficient and ineffective for the needs of the students that we have today and can be costly to maintain. The students at Sudlow and SMART, and all of the other middle schools for that matter, are encouraged to have collaborative conversations and work together on projects through cooperative learning, which enhances and improves their overall learning experience. A lot of the classrooms at Sudlow are not equipped to provide that type of learning experience because the classrooms are too small or are furnished with desks instead of tables and chairs. I had to cut some pieces out. By building a new building, we are looking at new facilities which provide all of the amenities that are necessary to educate today's middle school students. A new build would also be less disruptive to the instructional day, unlike a renovation that would be done in a staggered manner and during the evening hours, which would not be ideal to the overall project. A new building would also generate a savings in energy costs over time because the building would, theoretically, be more cost efficient to operate and should not need any additional repairs for at least the first 10 years. Can I finish? I just have a little bit more. Okay. So we reminded the last board meeting that middle schools, including SMART and Sudlow, hadn't had any major building renovations in the last 15 to 20 years. So this is not acceptable and sends a message that the middle schools are not as important as our other buildings. I'll just cut to the last piece. It demonstrates that our district, if we were to build a new building, it would demonstrate that our district recognizes and invests in the staff, students, and communities in which those buildings serve, providing teachers in the building with adequate space to provide their unique student needs, and the students a space that is inviting, making Sudlow a place where we can all show up together. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for participating in an open forum. The board appreciates hearing from the community. We will move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Poston.
I'd like to pull 7.02 for discussion.
Okay. May I have a motion on the consent agenda minus 7.02?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board accept the consent agenda as written with the exception of 7.02.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Oh, you had a question? Oh, sorry.
I just want to know why we're doing this, or why we're considering doing this.
I'm assuming Director Poston would like to have a discussion on that one. So it'll have to have a motion and a second to discuss that.
It's not the consent agenda.
Because you have to pull it off to have the. Okay. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. I will entertain a motion on subject 7.02.
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
I move the board approve item 7.02, listing agreement with Mel Foster for the former Buchanan School.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, Director Poston?
I've given this quite a bit of thought, and what I would like to do, or would like to see the board do, is pull this property from listing at this time, and for a couple reasons. I would like the long-range planning facility group to look at other possibilities for that building. One example would be expanding our CTE program and other programs, if that would be viable. The other thing is we're looking at 7 acres there alongside that building. The other thing I would like to have the district look at is the possibility of putting a solar array on that site in order to offset some of our electrical costs in the district. So that is my reasoning behind that.
Is there any other discussion? Did that clarify it for you, Director Potts?
No, I just wanted to know what his thinking was.
Okay. Any Director Beck?
So I guess my question would be, are you asking for a motion to table this item? Are you making a motion to table this item? Or are we, because we've got a motion on the table to vote for it.
There's a motion on the table right now.
To table it?
No, to approve it, correct?
Right, but if you,
The motion's been moved and seconded to approve it as presented.
right,
If it got voted down, then it would move on, or
No.
Yeah, we're just on discussion on this.
oh, okay, so
While you're thinking about that, Director Klein-Jerome.
And what would be the timeline for the long-range facility plan to look at this and something? I mean, I don't want to hold on to a building and pay the utilities and worry about somebody breaking into the building for a year. I mean, so is there like how many months are you thinking, or a timeline on this?
You know, and I agree too. We don't want to hang on to a building any longer than we have to. But I just felt that we need to look at, and again, we can turn down any offers that come along too. But when I was looking at the contract, it looks like we're stuck for 6 months if we sign the contract. Is that correct?
Joe, do you want to answer that?
Can you come up to the microphone and say it, please?
So if it's through next, we're talking August of 2024. So, you know, if there's no offers come in during that time period, we're still sitting there with the building. And so my thought is, during that time, can we be investigating other possibilities with that building? And we're talking about 11 acres here altogether. So, you know, it's pretty sizable, and there might be some things that we might be able to do with it.
All right, so the listing goes through August of next year, August 2024.
Superintendent Schneckloff.
So, Joe, if we vote to approve this, all we're doing is listing it, correct? And when we list it, we don't have to accept an offer. So we can hold on to this property for as long as we want, say yes to an offer, say no to an offer, and we still have the ability to go through and answer Director Posture's questions. Is that
Correct. Yeah, you don't have to accept any offer you don't want to.
And there's no financial obligation on our part whatsoever then, correct? Until an actual sale takes place.
You don't pay anything until closing.
My concern would be that we don't get the ball rolling. People look for other properties. We do decide we want to sell it and we miss it, where we could be gathering opportunities while we're doing the investigating that you request, if the board so chooses.
Director Beck.
I guess I'm just wondering, like, if we do some investigation and then somebody comes to us with an offer that we want to accept, and we've been investigating some other possibilities for 6 months, have we, I don't want to spend a lot of time and district staff, time and money on investigating something. But if it's the kind of thing, the questions Director Poston is asking are things that we could apply to any site, can we put a solar array here? Can we expand welding, whatever, then I would be fine with it. I just don't want to spend a lot of money, a lot of people's time investigating something and then have a sale pop up, that we want to accept. Does that make sense? So that would be my only main concern.
I think anytime, once if the board decides to move forward with this, we would bring all offers to the board, and the board would then decide that. And we have the ability to do that in a fairly quick manner due to the closed session laws that we have. Correct, Brenda? Closed versus exempt.
I guess that's not my issue.
Hang on one second. To clarify something, a solar array would only benefit that facility. It's not like you can store the energy and disperse it to the others. It's just for that one facility. But go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, like, whatever potential uses for it, I don't want to spend a lot of district time on investigating that, and then a sale pop up that an offer pop up that we want to take, unless it's information that is going to be beneficial in some way. That's really the issue. Is I'm all for investigating. I don't want to spend a lot of district time on it. Yeah.
Director Barnes.
I'm inclined to vote in favor of listing, but I do think that Director Poston's exploration of alternative uses for this acreage and building is perfectly appropriate. It'd be great to have that sort of as a time-bound request, that we would ask for alternative uses for that property by X date, so we're not stringing along using excess time of an already stretched staff. But I also am respectful of the idea of at least getting this rolling should we get an attractive offer. But I think asking about alternative uses of the property is perfectly acceptable.
Director Potts.
I just want to remind everybody that the process that we've embarked upon for the last 2.5 years has been to assess our district's needs of its facilities. We've come to the conclusion that we have too many buildings. And even with closing these 3 elementary schools, we still have too many buildings. I mean, let's keep that in the front of our heads when we're thinking about where we're going down the road here.
Director Poston.
And I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, and again, I'm not just trying to hang on to a building. I just want to see if there's some other possibilities. And, there's going to be a lot of changes taking place when sixth graders go back into intermediate schools. And so, I mean, the long range planning committee has a lot of things to evaluate, but I just thought this would be one thing that we should take a look at. And I'd have no problem proceeding with, going ahead and listing it.
Anybody have anything else? The only thing I'll add, as far as the long range facility planning committee, the one thing we'll have to consider too is what projects is going to get put behind to do whatever we would have to do at that facility. Because the entire time we own it, we still have to pay to maintain it. With no other discussion, the motion's been moved and seconded to approve subject 7.02 listing agreement with Mel Foster for 4515 Fairmount Street, the former Buchanan School.
basically means that what we budgeted for and what we're spending more than what we budgeted for in that category.
I would say it's what we published as our budget.
Okay.
We spent more than what we published in our budget. We did anticipate spending dollars. I didn't expect it to be in the support services line. I expected it to be in instruction or non-instructional or in the other because of some transfers, but we spent it in the support services line. There's a fine line in where those expenditures occur. So it's
this
more
is-
like it's out of which line it's in that I didn't anticipate as well as
It's
I
not
should
the
have.
total.
Correct.
Okay.
Going forward, Dan, we'll work on our 5-year projection. I had just started that last week after we got everything closed. So we'll be working on a 5-year projection and we'll bring that back to the board.
Thank you, Kevin. Student board members, school finance is very complicated. I know your minds are blown right now. I'm going to take a quick break before we move on to items requiring action. All right, we're back. We'll move on to items requiring action. The first subject is 10.01, change to long-range facilities plan to include new facilities instead of expansion and renovation at Sudlow. I do want to note the following motion was made by Director Hayes and seconded by Director Beck at the September 11th, 2023 meeting. I move the board approve adjustments to the long-range facilities plan to include new facilities instead of expansion and renovation at Sudlow Middle School. Subsequently, Director Klein Jerome moved and Director Hayes seconded. The board postponed that motion to the next meeting. The motion to postpone passed unanimously. As a result of those board actions, we have an open motion on the table right now. Is there any discussion? Director Beck.
I just want to say we did get some feedback from the community, and we heard from open forum as well. And as far as I can tell, most of the feedback I saw was positive in terms of this motion, but I think the goal of tabling it was to try and get some feedback from people before we made this decision. So.
Is there any other discussion? Director Poston?
Maybe I'm looking too far ahead, but if we're approving this as a brand new building, I would expect that the same thing is going to happen with SMART, and that would be my assumption anyway. My reason for visiting both SMART and Sudlow last week was, again, to get another look, even though I've been in the buildings before. And both principals were gracious as far as showing the building. And I believe at SMART we looked in every classroom and every nook and cranny that there was. But I feel strongly that we definitely need to go the new building. A couple concerns that I have is that even with taking down the two elementary buildings, I'm still concerned about the size of the footprint that we have there, but there's not a whole lot that we can do about that. So that does concern me. And then one other question I would have with this, with going with a standalone building, will there be in that building, will there be a second gym in that building? Okay.
Can you come up and say that out loud?
Yes, there will be a second gym in that building.
Thank you. Director Beck?
Along with the feedback that we got on this, a number of people also seem to be making the assumption that we would be looking to do the same thing at SMART, and I know we discussed that as well as a matter of equity. I know our motion is just Sudlow, but we were given numbers for SMART as well. Are we going to be getting a motion to make the same type of change? Is that something we can talk about?
So right now the motion is about Sudlow. SMART will be coming later on. Just keep it, don't get me in no trouble here.
You call me right out of order,
All right.
President Goza. The long-range facility plan has been established and talked about by this school board before. The cadence in which that the long-range facility plan is moving is Sudlow. West High School was first, starting in the West End. Second was Sudlow, and 6 months later follow the same conversation that we're having right now about SMART.
Okay, because I know one of my concerns was that I wanted to make sure that we were, these schools are very similar in a lot of ways, and the issues are very similar in a lot of ways. And so while I am voting just to change the plans for Sudlow, I I expect to see a similar discussion and motion for SMART. So I'm putting that out there.
I believe you did that several times on the 11th too, so it was duly noted. Any other discussion? Director Potts.
We're looking at these figures here. We're looking at between $3 to $9 million more. If you split the difference, it's 6 times 2 is $12 million. Worst case scenario, it's $18 million more. So the question has to be asked, what won't be done that's on our long-range facility plan if we're looking at spending a potential of $12 to $18 million that's not in the long-range facility plan now? And that's a very important question because it's a lot of money, a lot of money. And you know, the rationale is the building's old, right? Well, you know, there's no guarantee that test scores are going to go up if we build a new building. There's no guarantee that behavior is going to get better if we build a new building. Sutler's had the highest math and reading scores for forever, and it's the oldest building. It's the people in the building that make things happen. It isn't the building, it's the people. And just, you all know my opinion. I've been over this. I could say it again. I have it all written down. But we've invested $20 to $25 million in those two buildings in the last 15, 25 years, including tuck pointing. I forgot tuck pointing last time. And we're going to take a wrecking ball to it. And we're not going to wind up with any bigger footprint for the kids as far as field space, other than Washington coming down. And this money is being spent, a lot of it, on demo. An architect that will pay a lot of money, asbestos removal that will pay a lot of money, and a lot of money to the landfill when you're talking ultimately those two buildings. So I don't think it's wise. I'm relatively familiar with both buildings, having spent 42 years in them. And the remodeling was doing up to 75%. If we still want to spend the money, the rest of that money could remodel the rest of the building. And as you have said, a remodeled building is going to be a great learning environment. So is a new building. But you got no history, you got no historical facility, you're forfeiting everything since 1918. And I don't think as a community, tearing down everything old is something we ought to be so enthusiastic about.
I can address a little bit about concern on overall cost. In tracking phase one projects so far to date, we're tracking under budget, which puts that disparity in cost under $5 million. So that is a lesser number than just simply adding the math of the potentially SMART and subload projects together. So we're tracking favorably. That's all inside of a maximum available funding amount that was established by the district financial consultant. So if this was to head in this direction, we're still working within the available funds that the district has. Any delays that occur from project to project do create a little bit of time for the district to understand where the timing of bond sale and how the finance works to make sure that we have adequate funds to cover these decisions as we move on. So hopefully that addresses at least the financial portion of this.
But the same interest rates that are adding to our coffers will cost us on bonding for this.
And Kevin is the better person to talk about the financial implications as it relates to that. You are correct.
Director Poston.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more, Bruce, on the value of maintaining an older building. I live in a house that was built in 1864. But when you're talking about our students and you look at some of the class sizes, and it was, again, I've been in those two buildings numerous times, but just specifically looking at the buildings, looking at the classrooms, we need to provide something better for our students. I'm concerned about foundations. When you walk the halls and you see cracks through the floors of the halls, that's telling me that there's foundation issues. When I first came on the board, I remember there was a bill that came for tuck pointing this building here, and it was $500,000. There's definitely going to have to be some type of that work done on those two older buildings. And I just think our students deserve much better. The architects mentioned that some of these, because of the support structure of the building, some of these classrooms would not be able to be changed. So I saw many classrooms with that were overcrowded, too many kids in there. There was hardly room to walk, up and down the aisles in the classrooms. So I just think that we can do much better for our students. And we've mentioned all along that the intermediate school should be our priority, and so that's kind of where I'm coming from. But I do not deny everything that you said, Bruce, as far as maintaining that older building. But I just don't think it's going to work.
Director Beck.
I also am not a fan of seeing historical buildings go down, but and I don't want to just get rid of old stuff, but I think when we were given the potential costs to replace things that are going to need to be replaced on those buildings, roof, HVAC, all that stuff, versus the money up front, and then the 10 years or so we'll have with very little maintenance cost. I think, as Director Poston said, our students really need spaces that work for them, and our teachers need spaces that work for the types of things that they do now. I teach in classrooms that don't work very well, and they can't be physically reconfigured, and it is one of the most frustrating things I have to deal with. And so I can't imagine having to do that, because I only have to do it for a semester, and then I'm usually in another spot. So I appreciate the need to be able to reconfigure. And as Director Poston said, we were told that not everything that we would want done in a renovation would be possible. And I know we'd still have asbestos removal costs, and we'd still have, or abatement costs, we'd still have other things like that. So as much as I don't want to see an old historic building go down, I mean, I live in a house that's 100 years old as well. It costs more and more to maintain, and at a certain point, it may not be the most feasible option. I agree, we could probably make it work, but I think we have an opportunity here to really make a couple buildings that meet the needs of the 21st century. So.
Student board members, you want to get in on the discussion? You got anything?
I do not remember the person that spoke earlier. But she kind of said that a new building will entice new families to come to the district, and I agree with that. And I think that if you look at the surrounding districts around us that are super successful, they have many newer buildings, and so I think a new building or multiple new buildings in the near future for us will help families be more enticed to move to Davenport and be in the school district. Thank you.
Or the topic of having a new building versus restoring a historical building also invoked more philosophical questions amongst students and conversation, which is exciting. However, it also like poses a question: do we keep the old building or do we have our new facilities? And truly, like there was like good points made amongst, I think, West. I don't know about North and Central or Miss City, but truly, like having a new building allows for new growth and for the 21st century. Like staying in the 20th century and remembering and nostalgia is great and all. However, for the future, we have to like move on. Thank you.
Director Potts.
We're not going to build these new classrooms in whether it's the remodel of the new building to accommodate 36 students in a room, are we? No, no. The reason we have 36 students in a room is because we don't have teachers. It's not because of the building.
Any other discussion on this?
Mr. President, I just request we do a roll call vote on this.
That's what, yeah, we are going to do that, yes. That was what I went over to double check about. Any other discussion on this? I do want to say I do respect Director Potts's viewpoints, and especially from spending all those years in that facility. As I stated on the 11th, we make a lot of tough decisions here, and for me, at the end of the day, it is what impacts can we make for the kids in the classrooms, and if it's more money in our general fund and less we're spending on things, that's where we can make those impacts and things like that. I do understand the fact of the historical buildings and things like that, but they're very expensive to maintain, and we all reach a life expectancy. We all expire at some point, and buildings do the same, as well as everything. I mean, laptops last maybe 5 years. You're lucky if you can get 10 out of them and things like that. Everything reaches its life expectancy, and I think it has served very well. And again, when a lot of these were built, there was a lot more schools around, and I think the district was originally like 25,000 students or something, give or take. But I do appreciate all the discussion on this and everyone's thoughts on this, and this will be a roll call vote. If there's no other discussion, I will call for the vote. Last opportunity to get in, student board members. If you want to get any more discussion in, I wanted you to be a part of the process. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Potts.
No.
Director Barnes.
Yes.
Director Poston.
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 10.02, curriculum resource adoptions for PLTW launch engineering module expansion? Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the purchase of curriculum resources for Project Lead the Way Launch Engineering Modular Expansion for $77,250 using ESSER funding.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this? This is pretty much for you guys. We already had our discussion on this. Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 10.03, computer lab upgrade for Central High School Graphic Arts Lab?
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
I move the board approve the purchase of computers and peripherals for the Central High School Graphic Arts Lab using SCRA grant funds for $56,203 from Bytespeed.
Second.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Director Klein Jerome. Motion's been moved into seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 10.04 Iowa Association of School Boards Delegate and Alternate? I would just leave it blank and then we'll do it during discussion.
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
I move we elect a board delegate to serve as a delegate during the Iowa Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly and Annual Meeting on November 15th, 2023. And I move that we select an alternate in case of emergency or illness. Is that?
Well,
Dan said no.
Well, then we need to know who to put in there.
Because we have to have the discussion, because we can't have a discussion without a motion and a second.
Second.
Thank you. I'm assuming there's going to be discussion on this, so is there any discussion on this? Any recommendations? Anyone want to volunteer?
I feel like Director Potts has been doing a great job the last couple of years.
Okay.
So I nominate him.
And I think Director Gosa filled in last year, so I think he could fill in this year.
Is anyone else interested at all? Okay, so the motion was made for Director Potts to serve as the delegate and myself to serve as the alternate. Is that good for you, Brenda?
Kind of backdoor, but
Do you want me to have them redo it? Well, we should have did a discussion and then did an action item. Appreciate you keeping me on my toes.
You want me to make a new motion? I move that Director Potts serve as the board's delegate during the Iowa Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly and Annual Meeting on November 15th, 2023. Director Gosa will serve as the alternate in case of emergency or illness.
second.
Thank you. The motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Was that good, Brenda? Okay, thank you. May I have a motion on subject 10.05, Netrix purchase for phone system replacement?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the Netrix implementation service training and the 3-year subscription of managed services in the amount of $809,171.48.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Director Kleindro. I gotta get quicker. Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 10.06, purchase of phones from CDW as part of the phone system replacement? Director Beck.
I move the board approve the CDW purchase of phones per the state master contract in the amount of $430,501.82.
Thank you, sir. Second.
Second.
The motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 10.07, policies for board approval?
Director Gosa, I move that the board approve policy 401.43.
Second.
Thank you, thank you. Is there any discussion? Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion, or all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Got me messed up here. All right. Ayes have it. Motion carries. We will move on to discussion items. First and only discussion item is 11.03, policies for board's first discussion. I will turn it over to Director Kleindro.
A number of these policies are listed as retiring, but they're moving into administrative regs rather than being a policy. And you can see that on the top listing of them. Anybody have questions about any of these? Okay, these will come up for 2 more discussions. One more, then a vote.
Thank you. Is there any administrative reports? None at this time. Board request. We have one board request. Name of board member making the request, Director Poston. Date of request 9/25/2023. Item requested, both an agenda item and an information request. Description of request, I would like the Long Range Facilities Committee to look into other uses for the Buchanan Building, including expanding our CTE programs and finding sponsors for our programs. I would also like the committee to look into the feasibility of putting a solar array on the property to offset our district's electrical usage. Why are you requesting this information or agenda item? I think we need to weigh all our options before proceeding with the sale of this property. Is there a second?
Second.
When would you like this information and agenda item? As soon as possible. All right, we'll move on to board reflections. I'm going to go first this time.
Good for you.
Brenda, could you come over here real quick? Yep. No. I'm going to go off topic here. I do want to acknowledge that Brenda completed her last chemo treatment and got to ring the bell.
Yes, I did.
But not all of you got to see that. So my wife made this so Brenda could ring the bell.
So you can ring the bell.
Thank you, Sam.
That's for you. That's yours. You sucker. And now you all got to talk after that. I should call him TJ. Look at him. All in all, it was a great meeting tonight, great discussion. I really appreciate the student board members. As it goes on, you'll want to give a little more input here and there, and that's fine. And if not, that's okay too. And thank you for sticking it all out with us. Now I'm all out of order. I'm going to start with Director Klein-Jerome.
I thought the preschool discussion was very informative. The fact that they explained the funding, the buildings, the process, how they staff students in there was very good. The other thing is I'm glad that I do not have to use the district's phones, because as I went through the presentation, if I have to be trained to use the phone, I'm out, let me tell you.
Thank you, Director Klein-Jerome. Director Potts.
Yeah, I'm shocked that you have to have instructions on how to use a phone. Just put your finger in and turn the thing.
They don't even know what you're talking about. Thank you, Director Potts. Director Barnes.
I just want to say thank you for the wisdom of this board to postpone the vote on the reordering of the plan and gather input. I found the input that we received to be persuasive relative to Sudlow and Smart, and just think that this board really exercised some good judgment and wisdom to pause that decision. So thanks for the good discussion today.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Director Beck.
I really appreciated the discussion on the preschool. It was awesome to have some data on the wall to go along with it, and I'm in the best seat for the data wall, I have to say. It's right in front of me. And also, it's awesome to have some student board members back after a long summer. So welcome to you. I'll welcome the other ones again later. So.
Thank you, Director Beck. Director Poston.
I appreciated the presentation on the preschool. I think that's so critical. I think we've got to work hard to get our early touches on our students so that we get them headed down the right track. And then I appreciated the discussion that we had on the Sudlow building. Not an easy decision, but I think in my own mind, I think it's going to be what's best for our students.
Thank you, Director Posh and Director Hayes.
I too appreciated the early childhood presentation with the young people coming up now, and I'm thinking with now more focus on it, that with the 95% and all the new techniques that we're using in curriculum, that we will see a change in our grading and our test scores. I also like the thorough discussion on Sudlow, and I appreciate Director Potts pointing out a bunch of things on it. I agree with everything that he said. However, we do need to move forward with the students and provide some of the state-of-art resources for them to work with in a nice new building.
Thank you, Director Hayes. Superintendent Schneckloff.
I'm incredibly proud of Tiffany and Stacy Struck and the work that they've done in our early childhood, and to have them stand up here and confidently present. And what they're doing with the preschool visioning is they're asking on the front end what it should look like, and I'm proud of that. Kevin and Jamie have done such an awesome job. If you were to look at some of those figures from before they arrived to where they are now, we were negative UAB, and to be talking about positive UAB right now, you guys have a lot to do with that, and I'm very thankful for that. Courtney and Diane, we've been trying to put together a data wall that is coherent, that makes any kind of sense and that is usable for us, and to have that data up there while the preschool was presenting, I think exceeded the expectation of what the board was asking, so your vision on that is incredible. And our student school board members, it's so, from the orientation to where you are now, I'm incredibly thankful that you are here. So looking forward to many more discussions.
Thank you. One last time, Brenda, I do greatly appreciate you. I couldn't run these meetings without you, so thank you very much. And with that, Director Potts, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.